Good Wednesday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, wherever you are in this great country of ours. East Coast, West Coast, North Side, South Side. Welcome to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I'm Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw. So good to have you joining me this week. Today, I originally had planned on an all justice served theme this week. But then I had a little change in plans, and I can credit allegedly with Brittany J for this. Thank you so much for that. Oh yes, and good evening to all my friends across the pond. It's so good again. It's so good to have you all here. Like I said, I originally had in mind an all justice served theme today, but one look at allegedly with Brittany J's live stream on the replay, and I shout her out for this, gave me the idea of bringing up not only a story that she covered, but I want to do a little something that I really should have done back in May. I'll get to that in a second, but as always, I want to start off with our missing person of this week. So let me pull this up for you guys. There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I pull the face up on the screen, this is Sunny Ceramic, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Sunny Ceramic is currently 22 years of age. She was reported missing on April 20th, 2019 out of Trenton, Nebraska. As you can see here, at the time of her disappearance, she stood 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighed around 183 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Here's the details. On April 20th, 2019, Sunny Ceramic left from Trenton, Nebraska with a male individual allegedly for a trip to Omaha, Nebraska. She has not been heard from since. Ceramic was last seen wearing denim shorts and a black tank top, and also had in her possession a pair of jeans and a hoodie. She was last seen in a 2004 white Ford Explorer bearing Iowa license plate HGJ341. Ceramic has a tattoo on her left shoulder of a feather with the letters FLY, fly. She also has a tattoo on her right ankle of a tribal sun in red ink. Sunny has multiple scars on her body, to include a rectangular scar on the back of her right shoulder, a small square-shaped scar in the middle of her upper forehead, scarring on one of her ankles and shin from a bike pedal, scars from the chicken pox on her face, a scar on her left hand at the bottom of her thumb and forefinger, and cuts on her arm. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $10,000 for information leading to the recovery of Sunny Ceramic, or for information leading to the arrest and conviction of a person or persons responsible for her disappearance. If you out in the Omaha or Trenton, Nebraska area have any information on the whereabouts of Sunny Ceramic, please do not hesitate. Call 911 immediately, or reach out to the FBI Omaha Division at 402-493-8688. Again, that number is 402-493-8688. I will have this information posted again later today or tomorrow. Or you can also submit a tip anonymously online at tips.fbi.gov. But whatever you do, as always, if you see something, say something. All right, so that takes care of the missing person of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, They also found a baby, but they didn't name it. That's good. Well, there's a baby found. Thank goodness, found alive. I hope. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring you back to your memory, leading to what Brittany, the story that Brittany covered on last night. I have amassed my notorious 10 moms, or should I say moms in name only. 10 women who, they were mothers to they were mothers, yeah, but they sure didn't act like it when it came down. So right now, I'm gonna start off with a case that you might remember, some of you might not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my notorious 10 begins with Susan Smith. Let me pull her face up real quick for you all. Here she is. You remember her case, right? If you don't, let me refresh your memory. Now, now keep this in mind. This is the entry from Wikipedia, and this is actually what had happened. On October 25th, 1994, Susan Smith reported to police that her vehicle had been carjacked by a black man who drove away with her son still inside. For 9 days, she made dramatic pleas on national television for their safe return. However, following an intensive investigation and a nationwide search, she confessed on November 3rd of 1994 to letting her car roll into nearby John D. Long Lake, drowning them inside. Her motivation was reportedly to facilitate a relationship with a local wealthy man named Tom Findley. Prior to the murders, he sent Smith a letter ending their relationship and expressing that he did not want children. She said that there was no motive, nor did she plan the murders, stating that she was not in a right state of mind. Later investigation revealed that detectives doubted Smith's story from the start and believed that she'd murdered her sons. By the second day of the investigation, police suspected that she knew their location and hoped they were still alive. Investigators started to search the nearby lakes and ponds, including John D. Lake, where the bodies were eventually found. Initial water searches did not locate the car because police believed it would be within 30 feet of the shore and did not search farther. It actually turned out to be 122 feet from the shore. After the boys had been missing for 2 days, the Smiths were subjected to a polygraph test. The biggest breakthrough of the case was her description of the carjacking location. She had claimed that a traffic light had turned red, causing her to stop at an otherwise empty intersection. However, it was determined that the light would not have turned red for her unless a vehicle was present on the intersecting road. This conflicted with her statement that she did not see any other cars there when the carjacking took place. Now, anybody who remembers this case knows how gripping, how angry, how upset this public was at the way Susan Smith handled her affairs, if you will. Okay, I got you. I got you, Arctic Timberwolf. Good to see you. Susan Smith took matters into her own hands because she wanted a relationship with a wealthy man. Unfortunately, the man didn't want children. So what does she do? She drowns her sons and then blames it on a carjacking by a black man. So what's happened? So what has happened with her since she went to trial? She was found guilty. Oh, but yeah, this is one thing we're saying to this day. She was her defense psychiatrist diagnosed her with dependent personality disorder and major depression. So in other words, she was able to escape the death penalty. She is currently incarcerated in the administrative segregation unit in the Camille Griffin Graham Correctional Institution in Columbia, South Carolina. During that time, two correctional officers, Lieutenant Houston Cagle and Captain Alfred Rowe Jr., having were charged after having sex with her. She was moved consequently to the Leith Correctional Institute in Greenwood. She'll be eligible for parole in November of next year. A mom in name only. Susan Smith, a mom in name only. That's how she made my no. That's how she easily made my Notorious 10. Next up on my list. Oh, so she wanted the guy for his money. Yes, she did. Unfortunately, he didn't want kids. You're right, Sav. That's no mother. Like I said, she was only a mother in name only. Next on my list, you thought Susan Smith was bad? Meet Andrea Yates. Andrea Yates. At the time of her of what she did, let's see. At the time of her murders, the Yates family was living in the Houston suburb of Clear Lake City. Yates continued under the care of Dr. Muhammad Saeed until June 20th of 2001, when Rusty Yates left for work, leaving her alone to watch the children against Dr. Saeed's instructions to supervise her around the clock. Rusty's mother, Dora Yates, had been scheduled to arrive an hour later to take over for Andrea. In the space of that hour, Andrea drowned all five of her children. She started with John, Paul, and Luke, and then laid them in her bed. She then drowned Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Noah came in and asked what was wrong with Mary. He then ran. Andrea soon caught and drowned him, left him floating in the tub, and laid Mary in John's arms on the bed. She then called the police, repeatedly saying that she needed an officer, but refusing to say why. She then called Rusty and told him to come home right away. Now, anybody want to take a wild guess that she also had mental issues, or one to let's see, 2004, Rusty filed for divorce, saying that he and Andrea had not lived together as a married couple since the day of the murders. The divorce was granted on March 17th of 2005, after which Rusty began dating his second wife, Laura Arnold. They married on March 25th of 2006, had one son, but then Laura filed for divorce in 2015. As far as the trials went, my goodness. Yeah, let me just jump ahead. Let me just jump right ahead. In 2006, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. She was originally found guilty and sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 40 years, but the verdict was overturned. But she has been institutionalized. Now, ooh, my goodness. I don't know what. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, so let me go back. Let me go back to Saf's comment. Not even in. I said Andrea. I said that Susan Smith was a mother, not was a mother in name only. She said nope, not even in name only. Okay, she's just a birther. Arctic Timberwolf was in a state of shock, and I don't blame him. Getting on to Andrea Yates' case, somebody's in stunned disbelief. Was perinatal involved or prenatal involved? I'm not totally sure. Or is it parental involvement? Oh man, there was parental involvement. All right, it was Andrea Yates who drowned all five of her children. If I had a dime for every one of these moms who killed their children and basically cry sympathy. No, like postnatal depression. Maybe, maybe, maybe. According to this, she was. Let's see, what was she diagnosed with? Oh yeah, that's right. She was institutionalized in the medical community. Let's see. Rusty Yates contended that as a psychiatrist, Dr. Mohammed Saeed was responsible for recognizing and properly treating Andrea's psychosis, not a medically untrained person like himself. He claimed that despite his urging to check the medical records for prior treatment, Dr. Saeed had refused to continue her regimen of antipsychotic Haldol. The treatment had worked for her during the first breakdown in 1999. He said, the real question to me is, how could she have been so ill and the medical community not diagnose her, not treat her, and obviously not protect our family from her? Rusty testified that he never knew that she had visions and voices. He said he never knew that she had considered killing the children. Neither did Dr. Saeed. Even though the delusions could have been found in medical records from 1999, he reluctantly prescribed Haldol, the same drug that worked on a drug cocktail for her in 1999. But after a few weeks, he took her off the drug, citing his concerns about the side effects. though her condition seemed to be worsening 2 days before the drownings, when Rusty drove her to Dr. Saeed's office. He testified the doctor refused to try Haldol longer or return her to the hospital. He also added that his wife was too sick to be discharged from her last stay in the hospital in 2001. He said he noticed the staff lower their heads as if in shame and embarrassment, turning away without saying a word. The hospital had no other choice due to the 10-day psychiatric hospitalization insurance constraints of their provider, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, subcontracted by Magellan Health Services. Still, that all that mistreatment, if I'm calling it mistreatment, led to the deaths of 5 children, drowning deaths in the bathtub. And Andrea Yates, as I mentioned, is institutionalized. But still, that's five deaths that was unnecessary, that didn't need to happen. If only they had did the right thing as far as Andrea's diagnosis. Next, my Notorious 9 rolls on with Diane Downs. Diane Downs, she was convicted of murder, attempted murder, and assault. And her she was convicted on June 17th of 1984, sentenced to life plus 50 years. Here's what happened. On May 19th, 1983, Diane Downs shot her 3 children and drove them in a blood-splattered car to the Mackenzie Willamette Hospital in Springfield, Oregon. Yeah, this is right around my way. Upon arrival, Danny, 3 years of age, was paralyzed from the waist down. Christy, age 8, had suffered a disabling stroke. And Cindy Lynn Downs, age 7, was dead. Diane herself had been shot in the left forearm. She claimed that she was carjacked on a rural road near Springfield by a strange man who shot her and the children. However, investigators and hospital workers became suspicious because they decided that Diane's manner was too calm for a person who had just experienced such a traumatic event. She also made a number of statements that both police and hospital workers considered highly inappropriate. She claimed that on a drive home from a friend's house, she decided to take a scenic route home. All her children were asleep, and Downs claimed that during this drive home at around 10 p.m., she saw a strange man in the road flagging her down. She said she pulled over and got out to talk to the man, describing him as a bushy-haired stranger. He then immediately demanded that she give him her car keys. She claimed she refused and then got into a physical altercation that resulted in his shooting in the left arm. He then opened the driver's side door and shot all 3 of her children. Diane then said she pretended to throw the car keys in a bush, and the man went to go look for them. While he was looking for the keys, she jumped back in the car and sped off to the nearest hospital. Suspicions heightened when Downs, upon arrival at the hospital to visit her children, phoned Robert Knickerbocker, a married man and former co-worker in Arizona with whom she had been having an affair. Forensic evidence also didn't match her story. There was no blood spatter on the driver's side of the car, nor was there any gunpowder residue on the driver's door or on the interior door panel. Knickerbocker also reported to police that Downs had stalked him and seemed willing to kill his wife if it meant she could have him to herself. He stated that he was relieved that she had left for Oregon and that he was able to reconcile with his wife. She didn't disclose to Diane Downs, did not disclose to police that she owned a .22 caliber handgun, but both her husband Steve, and Knickerbocker informed authorities that she did. Investigators later discovered that she had bought the handgun in Arizona during her marriage to Steve. While they were unable to find the weapon, they found unfired casings in her home with extractor markings from the murder weapon. Most damaging, witnesses saw her car being driven slowly toward the hospital at an estimated speed of 5 to 7 miles per hour. Let's see. Timberwolf. She would have had to purposely hold him underwater for many minutes. In my book, the whole insanity stuff is BS. She knew what she was doing. Excuse me. Arctic Timberwolf. I couldn't agree with you any more than I already do with that one. Savage actually found the paper on that case. Oh yeah, there's a lot about that case. Let's see. She was moving at an estimated speed of 5 to 7 miles an hour, contradicting her claim that she drove to the hospital at a high speed after the shooting. Based on this and additional evidence, Downs was arrested 9 months after the shooting on February 28th of 1984 and charged with 1 count of murder and 2 counts each of attempted murder and criminal assault. The prosecutors argued that she shot her children to be free of them so she could continue her affair with Knickerbocker, as she claimed that he let it be known that he didn't want children in his life. Sounds familiar. Mom willing to kill her own kids to be with another man, but the man doesn't want children. Much of the case against her rested on the testimony of her surviving daughter, Christy, who, once she recovered her ability to speak, described how her mother shot all 3 children while parked at the side of the road and then shot herself in the arm. Downs was convicted on all charges on June 17th of 1984 and sentenced to life in prison plus 50 years. She was required to serve 25 years before being considered for parole. Most of Downs' sentences to be served consecutively. The judge made it clear that he did not intend for Downs to ever be free again. Downs' sentence means she could not be considered for parole until 2009. Under Oregon law at that time, as a dangerous offender, Downs would have been eligible for a parole hearing every 2 years until she is released or dies in prison. In her first application for parole in 2008, Diane Downs reaffirmed her innocence. She insisted that, and I quote, "Over the years, I have told you and the rest of the world that a man shot me and my children. I have never changed my story." End quote. Her first parole hearing was on December 9th of 2008. Lane County District Attorney Douglas Hackleroad wrote to the parole board, "Downs continues to fail to demonstrate any honest insight into her criminal behavior, even after her convictions. She continues to fabricate new versions of events under which the crimes occurred." He also wrote that she alternately refers to her assailants as a bushy-haired stranger, 2 men wearing ski masks, or drug dealers and corrupt law enforcement officials. Downs participated in the hearing from Valley State Prison for Women. She was not permitted a statement, but answered questions from the parole board. After 3 hours of interviews and 30 minutes of deliberation, she was denied parole. She had parole hearings in 2010 and 2020, which both were denied. Diane Downs maintained her innocence in all of her parole hearings. Again, let's see. Arctic Timberwolf says, wait a minute, so she had kids by another man and then wanted to be with a guy that did not want kids? That's what it sounds like to me, Timberwolf. Well, Andrea Yates before that was the same way. They meet, they have a husband, they fall in love, get married, have children. Then all of a sudden the marriage is not working out for some reason or another. They the woman in the case decides she's going to have an affair with someone. In Andrea Yates' case, somebody wealthy. The affair seems to be going good until they want to take this thing further. Then on top of that, surprise, surprise, the guy does not want children. And these women, these desperate women, I call them that for a reason, are willing to take it to an extreme that they would kill their own children to be with these men that don't want children. And the craziest thing about it is these men happen to wise up. These men just happen to wise up and try to reconcile things with their with the wives that they were originally having the affairs with. While they're reconciling, Downs, Yates, they go on trial. They're found guilty. Or Yates in Yates' case, her conviction was overturned, yet she's still institutionalized. Andrea Yates is still institutionalized, excuse me. Diane Downs is currently sitting behind bars. Life plus 50 years, had parole hearings in 08, 10, and 20, all of which were denied. If I had to hazard a guess, ladies and gentlemen, I would say Diane Downs is not getting out. And I'm a businessman, not a gambling man. Just know that. Next in my notorious mom count, it's a case that sets me off every time her name is mentioned. It's so bad that the Wikipedia entry doesn't set the title off with the mom's name, but the death of the child. In this case, the entry is the death of Kaylee Anthony. The only thing that really ticks me off about this is that out of all the moms, all the notorious moms on my list, she ranks up there with me as far as the ones I can't stand the most. Why? I'll say this slow so everybody can grasp it. And I'll even bring my sound effects board up just for this moment too. She got away with it. She got away with it. Her attorney used a song and dance routine, if I can call it that, did more deflection on that in that case than I've seen. Let me put it this way. I've seen politicians do less deflection than I've seen in Casey Anthony's trial. Yet, despite all that evidence against her, a jury found her not guilty. Two-year-old Kaylee Marie Anthony deserves, yes, but is denied justice. And if I can make it just a little bit worse, I can make it worse simply by saying this. Casey cannot be tried a second time. No matter what evidence they find that are actually linking her to Kaylee's death, she cannot be tried again. So if anybody who covered this trial long before you may have become a true crime creator like myself, know that she is doing exactly what her tattoo says on her back. She's literally living la bella vita. I never agreed with Nancy Grace much. But after that not guilty verdict on that day, there was one statement Nancy Grace made, and I agreed with it to this very day. And she said it in that moment that somewhere the devil was dancing that night. She got away with it. She blamed her father. She blamed Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, the nanny. She went ahead and ran after it was all said and done. When Kaylee was missing, she didn't report her missing for 31 days, a whole entire calendar month. I don't know how I don't know how they have found her in that swamp, but I will never ever forget, as long as I live, Casey's mother's reaction after she found her own car and opened up that trunk. She said to police, and I'm quoting her exactly, "I just found my car today, and it smells like there's a dead body in the damn car." Deep down in my heart, deep down in my heart of hearts, Casey may have gotten away with it here on Earth. But as for what happens in the afterlife, oh, by the way, this is what she looked like at the time of her arrest in 2008. Yeah, and as you can see here, she was found not guilty on the count of first-degree murder, one count of aggravated manslaughter of a child, and one count of child abuse. She was found guilty on 4 counts of providing false information to law enforcement, given credit for time served in prison, and released on July 17th, 2011. Like I said, she may have gotten away with it on Earth. But I guarantee you, in the afterlife, she's going to get hers. She's going to get hers. So, moving right along. Next up, and this is a pending case. I'm going to take you to my friends from Court TV for this next for the next one. So let me go ahead, hit you with the disclaimer. All right. So we're covered. I'm going to hit you all up with a trigger warning, which is what I should have did at the very beginning, because every last one of these stories could trigger you. And there you go. You got the trigger warning, you got the copyright warning. Now let's go. This is the case of Leilani Simon. Look at his face. I'm going to take you right straight to the indictment. Oh, this will do. All right.
back, we now turn our attention to Savannah, Georgia, where we're learning new details about the death of baby Quentin Simon. The indictment against Quentin's mother, Leilani Simon, filed yesterday, is revealing many details that police weren't commenting on or confirming during the investigation. Leilani is facing 19 charges, including malice murder, felony murder, concealing his death, and making 14 false statements to police. We're going to break down all of those alleged lies in that indictment. But first, let's take a look back at how we got to this point. Little Quentin Simon was just 20 months old when he was last seen in his home in Savannah, Georgia on October 5th, 2022. He lived with his mother, Leilani Simon, her boyfriend, Danny Youngkin, and his grandmother, Billie Jo Howell.
The boyfriend woke up, saw the child at 6 a.m. The mother woke up at some other time later and then reported the child missing at 9:39. I believe the call came into 911.
Local police and FBI began searching for Quentin that very day.
We have yet to locate little Quentin. We continue to investigate this incident. We got some assistance from the FBI. We got numerous interviews to conduct today, as well as downloading phones and things of that nature.
Leilani Simon tells police that Quentin's biological father, Henry Bubba Moss, took him, so authorities go to Bubba's home more than an hour away.
He was being questioned about where he was overnight, October 4th into October 5th, and proved to police satisfaction anyway that he had nothing to do with it.
Has there been any contact with Quentin's biological father?
We have had contact with him. He's not a suspect in this case.
After a week of searching for little Quentin, the Chatham County Police confirms everyone's worst fear. Quentin is believed to be dead, and his mother, Leilani, is the primary suspect, but no charges or arrests are made.
What are you doing? What is going on here? Where's the FBI? Where's Secret Service? Somebody needs to find this baby and lock her up.
After that announcement, all eyes turn to Leilani. Protesters, podcasters, and YouTubers gather outside of her home day and night. Nearly 3 weeks after Quentin was reported missing, Leilani and her mother finally speak out in an interview with WTOC News.
And if something does come up that I am at fault, I will take myself to that police station.
Then details that police weren't commenting. Missing, Leilani and her mother finally speak out in an interview with WTOC News.
And if something does come up that I am at fault, I will take myself to that police station.
I pause it right there to applaud let's see. First off, let me answer Sav's question. That could very well be a Bullhorn Betty crowd. I'm not totally sure. Second of all, like I said, I pause to applaud Leilani Simon for that exceptional acting job. The reason why I say that, I got this on as a full screen. Did anybody see any tears coming from the eyes of Leilani Simon? I didn't. But let's move on.
Then, 47 days after Quentin vanished, law enforcement find remains of a human child in a local landfill, and they arrest Leilani Simon.
Our search teams at the waste management landfill found what they believed were human remains. This afternoon, the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, confirmed that they are, in fact, human remains. Additional testing, including a DNA analysis, is being conducted, and we have every reason to believe that this will confirm the remains are Quentin's.
Simon faces charges of giving a false statement to police, concealing a death, and malice murder. Again, Leilani Simon was officially indicted on those charges yesterday. We've got the 19-count indictment here, and we're going to break it all down. Still with me, my guest.
So there you have that. if I can pull up the indictment. No. No, but you heard the you heard that 19 counts. But here's something crazy. They were able to compare this case to that of Casey Anthony. We just talked about her before. So that's the reason I'm keeping this set up here again. And I'm going to throw this again to Court TV, but first, you see, Arctic Timberwolf now remembers that case. So he looks like the guy on the Russell case. Hang on, it gets worse. This is a comparison between Leilani Simon and Casey Anthony. Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott. So appreciative that you've joined us this afternoon. And before we get back into the millionaire murder trial, we have new developments in the Quentin Simon case. Police out of Savannah, Georgia, announced yesterday that they have arrested the mother of the missing toddler. Leilani Simon has been charged in connection to the death, the murder, the death, and disappearance of her 20-month-old son. She reported him missing back on October 5th of this year, so more than a month ago. Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae has been covering this case. I'm very happy you are joining us here live now. Your attention to detail, everything you know about this case. The very first question in my mind, Julia, is obviously 47 days later, and the child's own mother is arrested. What do we know about why it's taken 47 days to get to this point?
47 days while police named her as a suspect, but had not arrested her or let us know what they believe happened to Quentin Simon. So now we know that they believe that he was murdered, and one of those charges is malice murders. That tells us something about what they think was involved in her intent, in her mindset when Quentin Simon died. So this all unfolded last night when police announced that they had made this incredible development in the story that had simply been before that they were still searching. You see right there the landfill that they were looking through meticulously to find the remains, and they confirmed what they did find were the bones of a child. Take a listen to Chief Jeff Hadley.
This afternoon, Chatham County Police Department detectives arrested 22-year-old Leilani Simon and charged her with malice murder, concealing the death of another person, false reporting, and making false statements in connection with the disappearance and death of her son, 20-month-old Quentin Simon. Leilani Simon is being held at the Chatham County Detention Center and is awaiting a bond hearing. We do not anticipate any other arrests in this case. She has been the sole suspect from the beginning. On Friday, our search teams at the waste management landfill found what they believed were human remains. This afternoon, the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, confirmed that they are, in fact, human remains. Additional testing, including a DNA analysis, is being conducted, and we have every reason to believe that this will confirm the remains are Quentin's.
You heard Chief Hadley there saying that they don't know for sure yet. There hasn't been that 100% confirmation from a lab that those remains do belong to Quentin Simon. And when asked why they went ahead with the arrest now, when they had said they didn't believe Leilani Simon was a flight risk, that's the reason that they didn't go forward with arresting her, even though they named her as a suspect. Take a listen to how he answered that question.
We feel that we have a very strong case. We have put thousands of hours into this, and we believed that this was the right move today to be able to do that. She doesn't deserve a Thanksgiving, quite frankly, if I can go off script a little bit. Quentin deserves that.
Judge Ashley, we were there in Savannah. We could see how involved this law enforcement team, the FBI, was there with their command center day in and day out looking for Quentin Simon there in the landfill. But now these results that they were hoping to find, but still chilling no less to know that they found human remains of a child.
Chilling no less, but what an incredible investigation, because when we first saw pictures of the landfill and you were reporting there live for us, Julia, and I remember looking at the pictures thinking, what an enormous task. They're never going to find, unfortunately, a decomposed child in that landfill. But they found bones. I mean, it's really a miracle, I think, that they were able to make that discovery. I know that they're still waiting on the results. But the other thing is, anybody knows me, I'll run to the gunfire for any child. And all children are beautiful in different ways. But this little love bug, you look at the picture, and it's like, what in the world? How could this have happened? The other burning question I think people have is there anyone else that they think was involved with this death, or any other suspects, or they focus solely on the prosecution of the mother?
The police have only named one suspect, only ever named one suspect. And even yesterday in that press conference, Chief Hadley saying this is the only one that they anticipate making in regards to the death of Quentin Simon. But there's been a lot of public scrutiny outside of this very house that you see there on Buckhalter Road in Savannah of the other people who were living there, including not only the little boy's mother, but also the father of his other sibling, so would have been the fiance or boyfriend of the mother, and then the grandparents of this little boy, who he was actually in the custody of Billy Joe Howell, his mother's mother. We did get this statement that was put out by someone who has stepped forward to be a spokesperson of sorts for this family, a woman named Cher, who's a YouTuber on Voices Behind the Wall. And she said the family was comfortable with sharing this, that they hope that Leilani tells the truth. Tonight is difficult for Quentin's loved ones, and Billy Joe, Quentin is her grandson. Leilani is her daughter. Today is something that needed to happen, but Quentin's family needs Leilani to still do the right thing. Also, we are hearing from Billy Joe herself talking about what actually led up to this arrest that made those headlines yesterday. Take a listen to some of what she said on that podcast.
I get a call from the place that she was at telling me that Leilani has checked herself out. Well, they're wanting me to come pick her up, and I've already made it very clear that Leilani cannot come back to my home. So I made a call to the FBI. Whenever I made the call to the FBI, I let them know what was happening in the current circumstances. I took her to Chinatown Buffet and let her have a meal because I knew already that it was going to be the last free world meal that she was going to have. Mm-hmm. So I leave from there and I take her to the FBI office. And I sit at the FBI office for 4 hours. And I hug her and I tell her that the best thing she can do is just be honest and tell the truth. Now, Leilani still at this time is holding to her words that she didn't do this. Now, because of the way I feel and the way I believe, and because of the circumstances that has happened over time, I don't know that I can believe my daughter. But there is a part of me that wants to.
Grandparents, good for them.
Now, a couple of things that we're hearing in that little clip from that statement that she made, not only that she doesn't believe that her daughter has told the truth, that she's telling her to do that, but that she's the one who called the FBI. Also, she suggested that Leilani has been in a facility of sorts where she had to be checked in and out. So not sure exactly what type of place she's been in while she's been waiting. We know law enforcement didn't think she was a flight risk, and you heard her mother there say she wasn't welcome anymore in her home.
Right, and I just am appreciative they're outspoken grandparents. When you have a dead child, missing child, presumed dead, they have to wait for those results. But I'm amazed, really, and fantastic that grandparents are willing to speak out and get involved in what happened in trying to find justice for this beautiful, really beautiful little love bug. All right, Julie, I want to bring in with us, you're going to stay, but I also want to bring in with us our guest. Still, we have with us former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, as well as joining us now, trial attorney Wendy Patrick. And thank Thank you all for joining us. I have to tell you all, one of the things that this really has made me think of, and other people at Court TV and viewers, is Casey Anthony. And
now that they've gone over everything that led up to Leilani Simon's arrest, this is where Judge Ashley Wilcott on your left side of the screen and her guests are going to start are picking apart Leilani's case in comparison to that of Casey Anthony, which we talked about just moments ago. So let's take this back to Judge Ashley.
let's just remind viewers the Casey Anthony case, 2008. So years ago, beautiful little girl reported missing. The mother says, I don't know what happened, not involved. The grandmother, again, outspoken grandparent, calls about a month later and says, listen, this child's been missing. We don't know where she is. The mother says she doesn't know where she is. Mother finally admitted she was involved. Law enforcement, we have a missing child. Mother was approximately a month later eventually charged with a crime. We know she went to trial. She was not convicted. But some of these initial facts, I think, are reminiscent of that. So let me start with you, Wendy Patrick, and ask, do you see any similarities to that case? Does it make you think of the Casey Anthony? And we know the verdict in the Casey Anthony case was not guilty at the end of the day.
I think there are some significant distinctions from the Casey Anthony case. And I think part of what led to that acquittal, at least by virtue of the jurors that were willing to talk and really what we know about the cases we followed it through, is Casey Anthony was a very different individual personally than this apparent suspect from what we know thus far. And especially after we've just heard from Janae, as in terms of some of the family dynamics that were involved, as well as maybe some personal issues. But I'll tell you what's similar, Ashley, is this is the kind of thing that we see frequently. I wish I could say Casey Anthony is the only case that I thought of when I heard about this arrest. But there are often cases where parents, I don't want to say are covering for children, but find it hard to believe that their own flesh and blood are capable of committing some of these heinous crimes. So they don't look where they think they should look, or they give everyone the reasonable, they kind of exercise their own version of reasonable doubt, if you will. Or as the mother in this case, a part of me wanted to believe, even though it sure seemed like she did it, that she didn't. So that's why we often see grandparents stepping in, taking custody of kids to protect them from their own sons and daughters.
Yeah, it is their son and daughter, but let's listen together, because there's some different parts of the Casey Anthony that I want to listen to, and then Nima and Julia, have you both weigh in. I want to listen first to some of the opening statement by the state saying that the mother had a story, but she lied at the beginning about what happened to her child.
I'm gonna stop right. I'm gonna stop it right there, and I want to say that I'm feeling the same thing in regard to Leilani Simon. She won. She's acting like she's all concerned when it comes down to little Quentin Simon, but somewhere along the way, if she's arrested for Quentin Simon's apparent death, it's possible she's not telling the entire story. And if that ends up being the case, then let's just hope that they don't make the same mistake, that a jury doesn't make the same mistake in Georgia that they did in Florida with Casey Anthony. That's just my take on it. And by the way, when I say that's my take on it, let me put this out there right now that that way I'm not mistaken. I don't want anybody to mistake me to think so what I just said is actual facts. That was my opinion only. So there you go. All right. Now that we got that, we'll just have to wait and see what happens when Leilani Simon's trial gets started. My countdown continues of Notorious Moms. And next on my hit list is one that I was so happy to see go down. And I know a lot of you are just as happy with it. Booyah. Letitia Stout found guilty of stabbing stepson and dumping the body in a suitcase. Article, if you remember you remember this case, I know you do. There's been a lot of creators that have covered this thing like a blanket. They've watched the trial with eyes glued. They knew that Letitia Stout was guilty the moment they knew Letitia Stout was guilty the moment that the moment she went on trial. So now what I'm going to try to do is pull up her verdicts if I can. Or better yet, yeah, the sentencing. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is stop there and flip that to I normally call different people my main man 50 grand ran when it comes to court TV, and I got that reserved for a couple of guys right now. One of them is Vinny Politan, and one is this guy right here, Michael Ayala. Let's go to him right now as we get ready to look at Letitia Stout's sentencing after being convicted of murder.
Back out to Colorado in the trial of Letitia Stout. Just earlier today, a couple of hours ago, after about 8 hours of deliberations, a jury found her guilty of all charges, including murder in the first degree and murder in the first degree of a child less than 12 years old. She is going to get life in prison without parole. That is a done deal. But there were victim impact statements, some very poignant ones, particularly from Gannon's mother as well as his father, Al Stout, who we've heard a lot of and heard testify in the trial. Right now, I want to take you back into that courtroom. The judge, Gregory Werner, is beginning his soliloquy. He is going to pronounce sentence. He has a few things to say to the court, so let's get back into that courtroom.
A parent's worst nightmare is getting a phone call letting them know that something has happened to their child. How much worse must that nightmare be when law enforcement asks not for a picture of your loved one, but rather DNA and dental records? I've also heard it said that one of the worst tragedies a parent can experience is to outlive a child. I have known people, both professionally and personally, who have gone through that. It never leaves them, but the sharpness of the pain does diminish to some extent over time. I cannot fathom the pain Mr. Stout and Ms. Bullard have experienced as a result of the defendant's actions. A sentence in a criminal case such as this will not change the fact that their son's life was taken from them, and no sentence I impose and nothing I say will ever change that fact. Ms. Stout, you betrayed the person you loved enough to marry. You told your husband lies and took away someone he loved. You took away every day that Mr. Stout or Ms. Bullard could have had with their son. When you take a life, regardless of how you do that, you forever alter the future. Neither Mr. Stout nor Ms. Bullard will ever see their son graduate from high school, go through the joy and the pain of that first love, or get married. They will never know what kind of impact their son may have had on the world if only he had lived to become an adult. And had Gannon's body not been found, they never would have known what happened to Gannon. They would always have had a lingering doubt about what happened to Gannon. And I cannot imagine the pain and sense of loss associated with that. You betrayed your daughter, Harley Hunt. I cannot imagine the emotional impact that you have had on her due to your selfish and calculated actions. This is a young woman that trusted you to put her interests above yours. This is a young woman who believed in you and believed you were innocent of this crime right up until the time that you pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And she still loves you. That's natural for a child, and it doesn't matter how much older they get. You were supposed to protect her. I cannot imagine the guilt she feels or the therapy that she will need to address your betrayal. There is no evidence that she had anything to do with the murder or your cover-up of it, but some people still think that she is somehow involved. She wasn't. The incredible strength of will and courage that it took for her to come in and testify is amazing to me. But she did it because, as she said, it was the right thing to do. And while thankfully she didn't testify, let's not forget about Lena. You betrayed her too. You took her brother from her and forever altered her family dynamics. She will always wonder who she can trust and will always feel that loss. She was there the day you killed Gannon. His body was still in the house when she got back from school. At some point, you even claimed this 8-year-old girl helped you move her brother's body from the basement to the back of your car. That's just simply not true. As she gets older, Lena is going to want to know more, and she's going to want to know if there was something that she could have done to prevent this. I hope she comes to realize that she has no fault in all of this. You betrayed your stepson, and you took his life. You took away everything he was and everything he could ever become. I can't imagine the terror and confusion that he must have felt in the last moments of his life when he knew his life was being taken by someone he trusted to protect it. Your attempt to raise the claim that you did this because of your adverse childhood is also a betrayal of people that have mental health issues. It is no secret that there is a large part of our population that has mental health issues. It's also no secret that our country and our health system could do a much better job addressing mental health issues than it does. However, the number of people with mental health issues who become violent is small, and the number who become murderers is smaller still. Your claim that a mental health issue caused the murder in this case is a disservice to all those who struggle with mental health issues every day. This isn't the first case I have presided over in which sanity or a mental condition of the defendant has been raised as a defense. I have had cases where the defendant's mental condition caused the defendant to act out in a certain fashion. But even in those cases, I have never seen conduct like this. I understand the claim of dissociative identity disorder. I have seen something resembling that, and I have seen defendants with schizophrenic disorders. I can understand those. What I have seen is that the mental condition causes the person to act a certain way, and when they realize what they did, they are astonished by what happened, or they have no memory of what happened. Your claim is that it was another personality that murdered Gannon, but there is no time during the minutes, hours, and days following the murder where Letitia came out and wondered, gee, why am I carrying a body around in my luggage? That just isn't credible. You knew what you were doing. You made a number of clear and conscious decisions to cover or disguise what you had done. Claiming a lack of motive is a common defense tactic, and it can be a sound strategy. The truth is, however, that it only takes a moment to make a bad decision that results in disastrous consequences.
I'm pausing right here to welcome Sav into the panel. How you doing, Sav?
Really good. How are you today?
I am good. Just counting down my notorious moms in name only. Some of them that don't even deserve that much of a title.
Yeah. I think we need to address an elephant in the room with some of these cases as well. But yeah. Like, I was just looking up here in Australia. Can't vouch for you guys, but there was a person in Victoria who avoided jail for killing her baby by laying it on the railway tracks. And what seems to be a reasonably common factor in some of these cases, not particularly the Kaylee Anthony one, but a couple of those others that I looked up while you were putting them up.
Right.
Postnatal or what they call postpartum depression is a very big factor in I'm just going to read it out. In there's a chemical change that seems to happen with a percentage of women, and the percentage is actually astoundingly high here. So what it says is, just let me grab the section. Okay, according to Panda, now Panda is Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia, right?
Mm-hmm.
According to Panda, 15 to 22% of mothers experience some form of anxiety or depression during the perinatal period, during pregnancy, and some of these cases are past this, but during pregnancy and up to 1 year of the child's life. Now, what's also interesting is, and I didn't even know this because I thought it was, particularly just for the mother, that about 10% of fathers experience the same conditions. So those are really high percentages of women who have children that end up doing something to them. What out of all these?
Be careful I don't end up doing another edition of Bethea'S Byte on notorious dads.
Well, we probably could. There is a YouTube clip I'd love you to bring up when you're done with this one, obviously. It was 4 years ago, and it's an Inside Edition clip. It doesn't go for very long, but it's called Couple Stunned After They're Charged with Murder of Their 10-month-old. Now, this one is different to postnatal or perinatal or postpartum, whatever particular, diagnosis word you want to put on it.
Go ahead.
Now, they they did this because they did it due to religious reasons.
Oh.
Now, I didn't know you were doing this like this today, and I found this last night. I found this last night by accident when I was looking at another case, which I think we should look at as well, which is Brooke Schuyler Robinson.
Yep.
Now, she got off lightly. She was acquitted of murdering her newborn, but she was required to, wear an ankle bracelet and all that kind of stuff as well. But some of these women, and in her case, her own mother, she gets on an interview, like from what I can't find any real decent documentaries, only like snip ones where they're only a couple of minutes long. But her own mother said that she didn't even realise that Brooke was pregnant. Now, if you look at the photos of Brooke, she's an extremely skinny girl, really thin girl. And even when she went to her prom, and she was pregnant when she went to her prom, she was still wearing the dress they had bought for the prom.
Wait a minute, because I'm detecting a little similarity to a case I'm going to bring up in a little bit.
That's why I wanted to bring it up.
I'm so glad you did, because I will bring that up in a little bit. Right now, let me dip back here to Letitia Stout getting her sentence handed to her from the honorable Judge Gregory Werner.
And oftentimes, we never know why a defendant chose a particular course of action. However, that does not mean that they did not intend to undertake a course of action. Sometimes, as in this case, the likely explanation is anger. An 11-year-old boy with burns who feels that he's not being taken care of. An 11-year-old boy on the verge of being a teenager. Those of us who have lived through people or kids that were teenagers, we know how that is. It is not hard to imagine Gannon saying something, "You're not my mom. I want my mom. I want my dad." And that would be enough to make you really angry. But anger is not an excuse. A defendant is responsible for the choices they made and the actions they undertook, even though those choices arose out of or were motivated by anger. It's clear that you hated and were jealous of Landon Bullard. You saw yourself as a better mother than she was. It's clear from the evidence that you had some resentment from being left with Mr. Stauch's children. It's clear you had some resentment toward Mr. Stauch because he traveled as part of his job. Some of that manifested as early as Al's assignment in Alaska when you made allegations against the people in his unit. That caused Al to have to return from Alaska. And in one of the phone calls that were played for the jury, you talked about having to take care of his kids while he was away, and what a good mother you were. It's clear you felt trapped. You wanted out. You were searching for a new job and a new location in Florida. Mr. Stauch had been gone on his new assignment for less than 2 days when the fire in the basement occurred. I can imagine that you saw your whole future consisting of taking care of Mr. Stauch's children while he was off doing his thing, and that's not the future that you wanted. I can imagine Gannon at some point after he sustained his burns telling you wanted his real mom and how that comment would have made you angry. You took your frustration and anger for the marriage, the child care, the absence of Al, and even living in Colorado. You took all of that out on Gannon. The evidence suggests you first stabbed Gannon repeatedly, 18 times. Based on the number of defensive wounds, he was clearly conscious for some of that. He was certainly gravely wounded. And chillingly, It would also explain how you were able to mimic the sound of Gannon breathing in one of your sessions with Dr. Lewis. Those were probably close to his last breaths. He was dying but not dead. The evidence could also lead one to conclude that he either fell or rolled off the bed where you shot him in the head and then beat him with the butt of a gun or a baseball bat. That would explain the blood found at different levels on the walls in Gannon's bedroom.
All right, so we do have to take a break, but the judge going through his interpretation of the evidence in this case, saying clearly, even though the defense claimed that there wasn't any motive, which is a common thing used by the defense, he sees clearly that.
I think
from psychosis, in fact, dissociative identity disorder, and then the judge is delivering his sentence. I want to get you right back into that courtroom. Let's go.
I'm also reminded of the look you had on your face when you slipped your handcuffs while being transported back to Colorado and attacked Deputy James. I shudder to think that that was probably the last thing that Gannon saw before he died. You have shown no remorse throughout this process. Instead, you've made a choice to build a web of lies. When you gave an interview to Detective Jessica Bethel on January 29 of 2020, you lied to her about Gannon running away and that he was actually taken by a guy named Eduardo. When you explained that to Detective Bethel, you said you needed to lie because you didn't want to face the consequences. You told her that you were trying to come up with a plan about what you should do. And finally, you told her you really thought you could fix this. I think that's true. You lied because you didn't want to face the consequences. You needed to come up with a plan to fix this, and that plan involved covering up what you had done. It involved lie upon lie. But you slipped up at various points and let kernels of truth escape. In one conversation with Mr. Stout, you told him the FBI needed to close the borders of Colorado, needed to close I-95. I-95 doesn't go through Colorado. It's an interstate that runs along the entire eastern seaboard. It's also not far from where you dumped Gannon's body. When questioned by Detective Bethel, you told her that Mr. Stout might also make up some kind of story about you coming at him with a knife. You said you would never use a knife like that. Yet Gannon was stabbed 18 times. Your actions in this case also show a very conscious attempt to avoid responsibility in this case. You started out with the story that Gannon had run away. You gave some hints that it might be related to bath salts or drug use by Gannon. You stayed with that story until you were called into EPSO for an interview. You knew they weren't going to buy the story that Gannon ran away. Then you came up with the abduction. And you stayed with some iteration of that for a long time. But all of those versions had one thing in common. You were always the victim. In one, you're beaten and raped and Gannon was abducted. In one, someone stole Gannon out of a truck in the parking lot. In another, you let someone drive Gannon to a hospital to take care of a head injury that he had after falling off a bike. In all of them, you could claim it wasn't your fault. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then you got arrested. You stuck to the story that it was someone else that took Gannon. During the hours that you spoke with Special Agent Grusing, he told you he thought sometimes good people do bad things and sometimes it's an accident. Then they found Gannon's body. Then you saw the mountain of evidence against you. And this is a mountain the size of Everest. What was your position after that? Well, it was an accident. And you, Letitia, didn't even do it. It was Maria Sanchez. You carefully crafted your new story to continue to avoid responsibility. It also allowed you to take advantage of the out that Mr. Grusing and Mr. Stout suggested much, much earlier when they asked you if this was an accident. Now it was an accident. Your Maria Sanchez personality shot Gannon by mistake because she thought he was an intruder in a cape. Multiple personalities is not credible in this setting, as regardless of how many personalities you have, you only have one body. I have presided over cases where a mental disease or defect prevented a defendant from remembering the course of events, including the commission of the crime. Without exception, those defendants have been terrified when contacted by law enforcement because there was a period of time in their lives that they could not account for. Their body may have sustained an injury, and they don't know how it happened. They may have some new object in their house or on their person, and they have no idea where they got it from. We all have free will, and we all make choices based on that free will. The people who suffer from the mental disorder you claim are terrified because their free will has been taken from them, and they are being subjected to things and experiences they don't understand and don't have any recollection of. You didn't behave anything like that. One of the purposes is to impose an appropriate sentence for the criminal conduct that occurred. Another purpose is to punish an offender by imposing a sentence that takes into account the seriousness of the offense. Yet another purpose of sentencing is to prevent crime and promote respect for the law by providing an effective deterrent to others likely to commit a similar offense. Anyone who's been in my courtroom before knows that I've said sentencings are the most difficult thing that I do. That's especially true in cases where someone has lost his or her life. Nothing I or the law can do will ever bring that person back. I have handled hundreds, if not thousands, of criminal cases over the years. I think at this point in my career, I've presided over something like 200 jury trials. I've sentenced hundreds more defendants pursuant to plea agreements. This is not the first murder case that has come before me. This is not the first case I have presided over which involves harm to a child. This is not the first case I have had where a person who was in an unhappy marriage committed a crime. Sadly, statistically, there is a high correlation between violent acts, including murders, and family members. I have had a number of cases which have demonstrated one person's capacity for cruelty toward another human being. I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen. Your conduct in this case deserves the maximum punishment that I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys. With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed. With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed. I also understand, with the consent of the prosecution, and I'm assuming no objection from the defense, that I will dismiss all the charges in 20 CR 3170, close that out subject to restitution, give the people 49 days for restitution, 14 days for response. And if there's an issue, we will set it within the 90 days, from. I think that resolves all outstanding matters. Is there anything else that the prosecution wishes for me to address?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Defense?
Yes.
Court will be in recess.
As you saw in the as you saw in that at the very end of that, he sentenced her to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. And a lot of us can agree that it couldn't have happened to a nicer person. Letitia Stunk is a danger, not just to the public, but for any child she encounters. Which is why she made my Notorious Moms list. Sav, what do you think?
Well, Stout's an entirely different case. I mean, it's not even her kid compared to the others that you presented this morning. And in her case, it was a very manipulative maneuver on her part to try and control her husband. Obviously, it didn't work because it turned into bigger than Ben-Hur on her. So she's not in the same group as some of these other women. Fortunately, rather, not unfortunately, but
yeah.
Fortunately, for the fact that, it's not her child, she hasn't got any children. And in that case, like her case, you'd have to categorize it entirely differently to these other ones. So when it comes down to sentencing for post, perinatal or postpartum, as they tend to call it nowadays here, Victoria has a much lighter sentence for a person involved in the death of their child, which is only up to 5 years, astoundingly. In the other states, like where I am in New South Wales, it does go up to 25 years. So, that woman, Andrea Yates, there is in that Wikipedia article that you were reading, the doctor actually did say to her husband she shouldn't be left on her own because she was suffering schizophrenic episodes and everything like that, self-harming attempts on her own life even. So,
Hang on.
Like a lot of women, unfortunately, go very undiagnosed with their going through this, and untreated, it can turn into older children being, unalived in that sense. So if it's not treated, they have to be treated, because like whatever happens when they're having a child, the chemical changes that they endure going through that 9 months, and then the child being born, and the process of a child being born from that person's body actually it's quite a traumatic event. So they go through quite a lot more than what's realised in a lot of ways. Now, we do actually have on our TV commercials regarding this sort of thing. So they actually do say, they have a clip and then they do a helpline for that. So that's probably why, we try and obviously educate people through television and recognition of days and all that kind of thing, that you can go and seek help. I don't know what it's like for you guys over there in that sense, but I still think that like up to 22% of women, is a very, very high percentage that they end up doing something to their child. And then afterwards, you know, that they go through these mood changes the whole bit. Now, if I go back to the article from Victoria that I was looking at, what they actually say, so the woman from Melbourne who was suffering severe postpartum depression when she killed her 3-month-old daughter, placing her in front of a train as it was has been spared for jail. She was only 32. They say she was later diagnosed with postpartum depression and psychosis, including auditory hallucinations. So they go through quite a lot more, and the court heard postpartum depression, suicidal ideations, and psychosis have subsided after medication and psychiatric community-based treatment. So they need to get help. And, you know, in obviously her case, maybe she didn't realise she needed help. Maybe there wasn't anyone directly in her vicinity to, you know, help her out with that. I haven't actually read the whole thing. I just found something to pull up, you know, while we're talking. But it seems to be that they go through such a traumatic event with the birth of the baby. They carry that baby, they nurture that baby for 9 months in their body, and then when that baby comes out, you know, that's a big space that child takes up, and it has to have some sort of chemical reaction where it changes their mood, their behaviour, their, you know, maybe once upon a time they were the happiest person you ever met. And then once they've had this child, well, they might have had other children, and there's this one child that sets off this chemical reaction that sends them into this state. So it's really quite something that needs to be looked at further in a lot of US cases. Now, I'm not saying that it's, you know, kind of an excuse. What I'm saying is that it's actually a medical what do you call it? A medical problem. It's a medical problem that slips through the cracks, you know. And yes, you know, they have, you know, unalived a child. But if they're also sick, which is what it is, then, you know, a lot of them don't realise what they've done. And then the ones that do go through the treatment and everything, they would actually be horrified of what they've done.
I got to put up a copyright disclaimer again because we got some breaking news coming. Give me 1 second. Yeah, we have some breaking news coming in, so I'm gonna play and put up a copyright disclaimer here first before we go to that breaking news. There's the disclaimer there, and we have breaking news regarding the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter. So I'm basically interrupting my countdown. My list of notorious mobs to break some news regarding the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter. Let's go to Court TV as always for the coverage.
And turning now to breaking news, a jury has recommended that convicted Pittsburgh synagogue shooter Robert Bowers be sentenced to death for the nation's deadliest attack on the Jewish community. The U.S. Attorney's Office is now holding a news conference. Let's listen in.
Throughout the building. Ultimately, it was these same courageous SWAT operators who took the defendant into custody, but not until he shot at them twice and wounded multiple officers. The work of Pittsburgh tactical EMS medics who entered with the SWAT team saved lives that day. We are forever grateful for their service. Many other law enforcement agencies from throughout the region raced to Squirrel Hill to assist on that morning, including the Pennsylvania State Police, the South Hills Area Community of Governments, the Northern Regional Police Department, and the Ross Township Police Department. On behalf of our office, I want to thank every one of our state and local partner agencies who supported the initial response that day. We are grateful for the professionalism and dedication of the staff of the Allegheny County Office of the Medical Examiner, who were some of the first personnel in the building and who were responsible for some of the most difficult early work. Our partners from the FBI were also there that morning. As the lead agency, the FBI has worked every single day since to investigate this case and support this prosecution. The special agents, analysts, victim specialists, and support personnel who processed the crime scene and who have worked on this case since that day have devoted hundreds and hundreds of hours toward this effort. In particular, I want to recognize the unparalleled commitment of the FBI case agents, Special Agents Brian Collins and Samantha Bell. There are no finer agents in law enforcement, and we are proud to stand with them every day. We also want to recognize the contributions of the dedicated staff at the FBI's laboratory at Quantico, who shouldered the enormous task of analyzing hundreds of pieces of forensic evidence in this case, and who were critical in reconstructing, to the extent they could, what happened inside the synagogue that morning. We are also grateful to the ATF and its valuable assistance throughout. Our team at the U.S. Attorney's Office has been working without interruption on this case since the day of the shooting. I have never seen an office come together in pursuit of justice and in support of a community like our office did in those early days. Every single person in this office, from lawyers to paralegals to legal assistants, worked together to make sure that this case was investigated thoroughly and that the defendant was held accountable for his crimes. Victim witness specialist Adrienne Howe has dedicated herself to supporting the victims in this case and making sure that their statutory rights are respected. Adrienne's work is a model for how to build and maintain trust between prosecuting offices and the victim community. We are so fortunate to have her here in the Western District of Pennsylvania. I also need to recognize the unwavering dedication of my trial partners and colleagues from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Assistant United States Attorneys Troy Ravetti, Sue Song, and Nicole Vasquez-Schmidt, as well as trial attorney Mary Hahn from the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, and trial attorneys Barry Disney and A.J. Stewart from the Department of Justice's Criminal Division. Finally, I have to acknowledge the victims. This case, at its core, is about the victims, the ones who are no longer with us, and the ones who have so bravely and gracefully carried the trauma of that day every day since. This case has always been about those who survived and those who bear witness for the 11 who did not. Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Dan Stein, Melvin Wax, and Irving Younger. The victims and family members have been a constant source of support and strength throughout the long road that has been this case. They have been a valued presence in the courthouse every single day since the jury selection process started months ago. They have testified as witnesses in this trial. They shared their loss and pain, and their strength is an inspiration. The formal sentencing hearing will take place tomorrow. Victims will exercise their statutory right to speak, to share the impact of their losses, to describe how the defendant's crimes have impacted them and their families, and then the judge will impose his formal sentence. The evidence in this trial proved that the defendant acted because of white supremacist, anti-Semitic, and bigoted views that unfortunately are not original or unique to him. Sadly, they are too common. Our Constitution protects a person's right to hold repugnant beliefs. But our Constitution also protects every person's right to practice his or her faith. And when people who espouse white supremacist, anti-Semitic, and bigoted views pick up weapons and use them to kill or to try to kill people because of their faith, our office and our partners in law enforcement will hold them accountable to the fullest extent of the law each and every time. I want to acknowledge Christopher Ragland, Assistant and Acting Police Chief from the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, who's standing here today. And I'll now ask Assistant Special Agent in Charge Christopher Giordano to make a few remarks on behalf of the FBI.
I'm going to stop right there and thank everyone at Court TV for that coverage. Robert Bowers, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, sentenced to death. Formal sentencing will take place on tomorrow, and honestly, this is a sentence I know a lot of people were waiting for, or especially the families of the 11 victims who tragically perished in that shooting. Sav, your take.
Well, again, you know, we don't have death penalty over here, but there are cases such as this one where it should be endorsed. It's only justified. You know, you can't just walk into
You said you just couldn't walk. You couldn't do what?
You can't just walk into a religious place and take out people just because you hate what they believe in.
That I totally agree with. I totally agree with it.
So it's justified. It's very justified. But the problem with the US is you have a death penalty. You have a heinous crime that the death penalty is applied to, and then it takes nearly 20-something years for that death penalty to be applied.
That I totally agree with you on.
Which is rather odd from my perspective, because, like, if there is no case for appeal, and in this case there shouldn't be a case for an appeal, these things should be done within, say, a 5-year period, not 20.
Right. You're right. It shouldn't even take 20 years to execute a death penalty. Absolutely.
I mean, of course, you've got to have a grace period so that if it was a person who really is an innocent individual, to be able to exonerate themselves, but then that would force people to set it into motion quicker, you know. And there are cases over there where people have been, sentenced to death and they didn't do it, you know. And I do agree that it needs to be investigated fully, to the full extent of the law, to make sure that you're getting that right person. But, because you've obviously sometimes you've got your police cover-ups and inappropriate handling of evidences and things like that, that have to be covered out. And they're what is it, Innocence Project or something? That's a really good cause. But it needs to be brought forward. These people shouldn't be stuck in jail for a long time if they didn't do something. If something is wrong and they absolutely didn't do it, it needs to be sorted out much quicker than it is. Even our case over here with Catherine Folbig, 20-something years later, she's innocent and she's already done 20 years of time. But they bring it back to, like, it was all of her children that were unalived had a medical condition that wasn't diagnosed, and she was blamed for it. So it was probably through innovation that's taken time to come through for her in a way, but that doesn't make it right, you know.
Yeah. So true.
So
So true.
I'm in the mind that if it really is unequivocally that person, and it's never going to be anybody else, then that penalising sentence that is set forth needs to be put forward in proper motion,
Right,
in a timely way.
And like you said, it shouldn't take 25 years at best for whichever jurisdiction that have a death penalty. It should take about 5 years to actually set that to actually go through with it.
Exactly right. I mean, in the case of Lori Vallow, for an example, I believe that like she really should have the death penalty. However, the woman stood up in court and said that she invites death. So the worst thing that you can do is give her the death penalty.
Sav, guess what you just did? I feel like I'm playing a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you just activated my quote-unquote trap card, or in this case, the next person on my list. Lori Vallow.
I'm just getting really good at reading your mind, Ernest.
It must be, because that's the next person on my list. Lori Vallow Daybell. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me get you back on here. There you go. Now let me pull up the NPR article.
I mean, there are YouTubers out there that can't even watch her statement in court, you know, like, and justifiably so. Because, here she is just quoting all her godliness and everything like that, and how you know, she wants death, you know. So, yeah. I mean, she didn't get the death. They tried taking the case to the death penalty, but for some reason she got out of it.
As far as I'm concerned, she might as well have gotten the death penalty, considering that initially I heard she got 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive life sentences. And in other spots, I've heard 5. Now, this is the article from National Public Radio. Judge Stephen Boyce sentenced Lori Vallow Daybell to multiple fixed life terms in prison with no possibility of parole on Monday, handing down punishment for murdering 2 of her children and conspiring to murder a romantic rival. The judge ordered Vallow Daybell to serve the prison terms consecutively rather than concurrently, saying it is important for her to be punished for each death. 50-year-old Vallow Daybell was found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy charges in May, as a jury agreed with prosecutors who said she wanted to eliminate her youngest children as part of a plan to embark on a new life with Chad Daybell, as well as conspiring to murder Daybell's then-wife, Tammy Daybell. Judge Boyce said, you chose the most evil and destructive path possible, despite having a wealth of better, less harmful options. He juxtaposed her enjoyment of a honeymoon in Hawaii with her children lying in shallow graves in Idaho.
Lovely woman.
Huh?
Lovely woman.
Yeah, real nice person. Yeah, right.
Yeah, not.
I feel the most sympathy I have is to everybody outside of Chad and Lori. Just this part is what did it for me. Her children, Tylee Ryan and Joshua Jackson, JJ Vallow, had been burned, mutilated, and dismembered and buried like animals. The judge noticed the disgust he saw on jurors' faces during the trial. The scene was horrific, Boyce said, adding that while law enforcement, jurors, and he himself will be haunted by the images of the children's bodies, he saw no sign that Valo Daybell feels any remorse. The lengthy trial was full of strange and shocking moments. Prosecutors say Valo Daybell was motivated by arcane religious beliefs about dark energy and the end times, as well as her desire to pursue a life with Chad Daybell, which included conspiring to kill his now deceased wife. You talk about somebody who actually deserved every bit of the sentence she got. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Lori Vallow Daybell. Your thoughts, Sav? If you have enough on her.
Well, I mean, the woman she's delusional.
That's saying a lot, considering her speech right before she was sentenced, and for everybody watching, I will spare you that speech. I'm considering your stomachs and mine, and how they tore mine into just listening to her.
Oh yeah, well, when someone can stand up there and start preaching the Bible as justification, I mean, hello. I mean, religion has, on the whole, it's had a very, very heinous historical span. Like once upon a time, if you were a Protestant, you were sent to death because you should be a Catholic. And these things exist. But I mean, obviously, religion has modified itself over the years in that sense that you can be, part of a different sect, and it doesn't really matter. However, there are a lot of people out there that don't want to follow religion for these sorts of reasons. That it has that sort of heinous history about it and everything like that. But these things did happen. It was not just about the religious side of it. It was also about the land side of it and the ownership side of countries and land and everything like that went with it. So the only way that they could find to eradicate certain tribes or communities or whatever was to go down a religious side.
Yeah. I was talking
and it's still happening today. I mean, the prime example of it happening today is you only have to look at Israel and Palestine and the Golan Heights.
Right.
And this has been going on ever since before I was born, and this is over 50 years.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the other surrounding countries like that too. They're all fighting over something with religion because they feel so strongly about what's written in certain texts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't get over places in the Middle East where they actually still stone women.
Yeah, that's a sad fact. Now, here's what I was going to say is my wife and I were talking about this just a couple of days ago, and we were focused mostly on what Lori said in her speech, and my wife and I both agreed. Okay, since we both believe in what the Bible says, and we both believe in what will come after, right? So in Lori's case, what's gonna happen when her time comes? She gets near to the pearly gates. She meets Jesus Christ face to face, makes that same claim that everything she did in his name, and Jesus Christ in return quotes from Matthew 7:23. Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you.
Yeah.
Think about that. That the end was
pretty strong words, isn't it? I never knew you.
Mm-hmm. Now, the way I believe it, if he says those words, She is going into everlasting punishment. The life imprisonment, those 3 life sentences she got, is gonna be nothing compared to the eternal punishment she's gonna get. And like Scripture says, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Meaning she will suffer. This will not be quick. She will suffer for all eternity.
Yep.
Well, that's it. That's it for Lori Vallow Daybell, and I've got 3 to go. Next up on my bad mom list is Alexis Avila. Hold on a second. Let me get you back on here. Next up on my list is Alexis Avila. We mentioned her, right?
Yep, we have.
All right, let me get this set up. Let me go back to the point where she was sentenced in her trial for having a baby and then taking said baby and throwing him in a dumpster. The great thing about this was the baby survived. Let's go to the sentencing right now.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to announce my sentence first. There'll be no outbursts from anyone in the courtroom, one way or the other. And then I'll give you, Ms. Avila, my thinking as to why I came down where I did. As to the crime of abuse of a child resulting in great bodily harm, a first-degree felony, I sentence you to 18 years followed by 2 years parole. I'm going to suspend 2 years. So you do 16 years in the Department of Corrections with credit for time served. You have 475 days pre-sentence confinement credit. While in the Department of Corrections, you will participate in complete course of cognitive behavior therapy, which will deal with some of your psychological problems. You'll complete a course on parenting skills, and you will participate in any vocational training or college classes during that period of time. I impose a mandatory $5 domestic violence treatment fee, $75 Crime Victims Reparation Act fee, $100 DNA fee. I do find that this is a serious violent offense, which means that your day's credit, the most you could get for good time would be 4 days per month. And I base that upon finding that this was a heinous crime. To toss one's own child into a dumpster like trash is something that it is an unforgivable event by any mother. Your child, I do agree, was very vulnerable, but for the grace of God and the happenstance of the 3 dumpster divers that found your child, we certainly would be here sentence you on a murder case as opposed to where you are. It's a miracle that in the cold weather of that night that your child survived. I do find that leaving the child in the dumpster and having hours to think about what you did indicates that it was a crime that you had an opportunity to correct after you thought about what you had done, but you did nothing. The resulting harm to your child, yes, I agree, there was a high probability of death, almost certain death. The impact that we heard throughout the trial about the problems with breathing, the problems with your child's organs. These are serious, serious things. And but for the wonders of modern medicine, your child would be dead. And that's not to mention the psychological effect that this has undoubtedly given a situation where your child's going to have to deal with it for the rest of his life. When thinking about your case, I think over and over again of the fact that there's no doubt that we'd be looking at a murder case, but for luck. So you're very fortunate that those dumpster divers came along. Because there's no question that but for them, your child, who was thrown alive in the middle of a cold afternoon, would be out at the Hobbs landfill dead. And you just cannot get away from that. The court can't black that out, neither can you. I do find that there are some mitigating factors, and that's why I knocked off 2 of the years. I do think your age is important. You had just turned 18. There's plenty of scientific studies that indicate a child 17, 18 years old, although you're legally an adult, that your mind is still not fully developed at that time. A lot of people do crazy things when they're a young person, but this went beyond the pale. But I do think your age is a significant thing. Secondly, the evidence was uncontradicted that you were suffering from bipolar disorder. That came from Dr. Cave in the testimony. It's in the reports that have been provided to me. Undiagnosed mental illness is probably a leading cause of people committing criminal acts. It was this court that sent you to the guidance center. It appears that counseling and the medication that you're on has been of some benefit to you, but I do find that someone who's dealing with mental illness is no different from someone dealing with physical illness, and you had it untreated at that time. And I do find that that was a mitigating factor. I also find that you had no prior record. Anyone that's been in my courtroom for the last 15 years knows that I always look at prior record. Is this someone that has been over and over again in front of a judge, given multiple opportunities? And I think it's of significance that you had no prior record. I also find that it was to your benefit that you complied with every aspect of conditions of release, which indicated to me that you're probably, as I believe, not a threat to other individuals at this time, and that you're willing to comply with those things asked of you. Finally, and this is probably the cruelest of all mitigating factors, and it's been mentioned in the presentation here this morning, and that is you've given yourself a life sentence. You've given yourself a life sentence of knowing what you did with your child. And you've also given your son that same life sentence. And that is probably something that is as hard to deal with as any length of time that you may have in prison. Also, as part of your sentence, you are to continue on the medications or whatever medications are prescribed by your doctors while in the Department of Corrections. The request that if there's some kind of security issue that comes up, I assume that the Department of Corrections would deal with that, but I don't know that there's a whole lot that I can do in that regard, but if there is any kind of threat to you, I would ask that you be appropriately moved. The section 311815.1 gives the court discretion if there are mitigating factors, and that's what I used in reducing your sentence by the 2 years. The serious violent offense was under 33-234. You'll be remanded into the custody of and to be transported to the Department of Corrections. Anything I missed from the state?
Your Honor, the crime victims reparation fee for felonies, I did not have that in my notes, but I may have missed it in the court's announcement of sentence.
I thought I said the $75 crime victims reparation fee.
That was everything, Your Honor.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I am suspending the $15,000 fine. Anything I missed from the defense?
Your Honor, nothing the court missed. However, defense is asking if the court will grant appeal conditions of release on this matter.
It requires a motion and hearing, and that's not on the calendar today. And I would also, for purposes of today, looking at 15 years, the court would have to see some real compelling evidence that there was no possibility of flight. And the court will not, at this point in time, under the rule, which is, I believe, 4502, you've got to file a motion.
We'll file the motion, Your Honor.
It is my obligation to advise you, Ms. Avila, once again, that you have the right to appeal the decision of the jury, the evidentiary rulings of the court. And if you're unable to afford an attorney will be appointed for you at the expense of the state. If there's nothing further, court's in recess. You'll be remanded into custody.
And they have that Alexis Avila sentenced to 18 years, knocked off 2 years for time served, and still all because she had a child and then threw it away in a dumpster. And like the judge said, thank God there were dumpster divers who found that child. My God, I mean, what is it with this? We're nearing the end of my hit list, and I still ask to this day, what is it with these moms just having their child and deciding to just dispose of them like they're nothing? Talk to me, Sav. I mean, because I don't know what else to think.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of understanding, obvious lack of understanding. Like, obviously he's saying, there is a bipolar problem there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't make it right that someone's been unalived as a little tiny thing in the world. However, there seems to be, and I'm not trying to criticize the US when I say this, there seems to be a lack of education, and there seems to be a lack of understanding, or maybe there is an understanding, I don't know, but there seems to be a lack of understanding on what happens to a woman when they have a child with this chemical reaction thing. Now, in her case, I think a lot of it was fear, that she was like pregnant and shouldn't be pregnant and things like that. So there seems to be a common. Yeah, these young girls in particular, are frightened of disclosing the fact that they have found themselves in a pregnant state. And however they got there. And I mean, maybe, like there could be a case where someone was raped and they end up being pregnant. It could be just a case of that they got inquisitive at a younger age, which if she had the child when she was 18, she would have been 17. And maybe she was like active prior to that age too. So you don't know exactly when she started getting into that scene. And a lot of education, hey, people, there is such a thing as going down to the local store and getting somebody to wear something, or going to your, I don't know, here we have places where you can go and you could get birth control items as a woman. You could get checked out and get birth control items as a woman, and it was like a free service. So there needs to be some things either more advertised across your TV networks and social media and things like that. And maybe there's a side topic to all of this that needs to be further discussed for awareness. Because if we've got 22% of people with, postpartum depression unaliving their kids over here in Australia, and they're avidly trying to bring it into an awareness situation, I know here, but maybe there isn't enough awareness going on in the US, I don't know, right? But it needs to be, something needs to be done extra, because these kinds of topics need to be brought out as a side issue as to the court side of it. So, I mean, I really feel that the judge has been really fair and reasonable with this girl, giving her the 16 years in that sense. She could have ended up with maybe 25. But also I had nothing from the judge saying that he wanted her to do any sort of extra programs to understand, how she should go about looking after a child or being around children or anything like that,
Right.
So these people need help in that sense. There's a lot of them that do, there's a lot of genuine ones that really do need help. But you've also got the element of ones that are just completely heinous, and they're not rehabilitable or anything like that. So he's operating in the sense that, like, she's rehabilitable. So, I mean, she's going to be, nearly 30 when she gets out with 15, 16 years jail from 18.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fair chunk out of a woman's life. So even if she wanted to have another child, she would be pushing stuff uphill between 30 and 40 to have that child.
But at the same time, the guy's going to be a little worried that he may want to have a child with her.
Well, by the time that goes on, you got to look at some other factors out there in social land. Is that there are people out there that go through pretty horrible, situations, and they still end up getting married and have children. Yeah. But I mean, I would like to see that, in her case, because they are young people, and they obviously have no guidance or misguided or. Totally. To me, doing something like what she's done, she must be desperately fearful of the consequences in some way or another. Now, that doesn't mean you should do what's been done. It means that lack of education. If you don't want the child, for crying out loud, maybe there's not enough information out there of what hospitals there are that you can take your child to without being So there needs to be more education to young girls, whether it be through school or whether it be through media advertising, or maybe it should be something that boys and girls should be going to as part of an educational process of okay, this is what happens. And if you find yourself in this position, don't hesitate to come to one of these, safe places to get help in decision making and what you do. Because a lot of these things I see from an outside perspective, even over here, I see them as avoidable situations.
You're right. You are so right. But the same thing can be said for the next person on my list. Pretty much a similar first name, similar case, same, like they say lightning can't strike twice in the same place. I say this is my legal version of hold my beer. This is the case of
hold your beer.
You like that? My legal version of hold my beer. This is the case of Alexi Treviso. I don't need to do much explaining about it. I'm gonna let my main man 50 grand from Court TV, Vinny Politan, explain this one. Go, Vinny.
We did a pregnancy test on her, showed positive. She was denying that she had sex. Then she said she had to go to the bathroom. She went to the bathroom. She was in there for quite a while. We kept knocking on the door. Finally, we got her to open the door, and there was blood everywhere. She was cleaning it up. So we took her back to the room, and I was afraid that she knew she was pregnant. She had done something to herself. So the doctor started doing a vaginal exam on her. We had the lady come to clean the bathroom. She put the baby in the trash can, and then she put another clean liner over the top of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when they looked in there, there was no trash in there, but it was underneath the clean bag. The baby's dead. Okay, we have him in trauma too, but she killed the kid.
This is an extremely troubling case. 19-year-old is at the hospital with her mother and hasn't told anyone that she's pregnant and ends up delivering this baby, locking herself in the bathroom at the hospital, delivering the baby. She's in there for a while, then discards the baby in the trash. The baby's found dead. Take a look. Here she is. Alexi Treviso is her name. Looks younger than 19, but she's 19 years old. I mean, that's young. That is young. I'm going to show you something now. This is the moment that the nurse comes into the room where Alexi is with her mom and explains what has just transpired, because mom doesn't know. Mom doesn't know. Let's watch.
I'm sorry, we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. It came out and we didn't know what to do. Lexi, I told you about this. But I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth. It was not crying or nothing. What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the obstetrician at Loveless. They want her up there as soon as possible. I'm sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby and it looked like you tried to hide it, we do have to have the police involved.
And nothing was crying. It came out with nothing.
I know. But the baby's gonna have to be taken for autopsy and there'll be an investigator and everything. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
How big is the baby?
It's full term.
What? 9 months? Nothing was crying. Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail? Nothing was crying.
I don't know if anybody missed the count on that, but she said 3 different times nothing was crying. Nothing was crying. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Alexi, and I'm gonna throw her mom into this too. Alexi and her mom were both having a CYA moment. And those of you who know, you know. Alexi trying to cover the fact that A, she was pregnant, B, she had a baby, she's trying to keep up appearances, so she had to get rid of the baby somehow. Mom trying to cover up the fact of what her daughter did. Again, she's trying to keep up appearances, so she puts on an Oscar / Emmy / Tony winning acting job like she actually cared. And to all that I say, really, you two can't do any better than that. Sav.
Yeah, again, I come back to education of young girls. The girl is in denial. There's no doubt about that.
We're not talking about the river in Egypt.
Yeah. So, no, not the Nile, dirt Nile. But
hey, that's a punchline of mine. It usually follows, if you know, you know.
Yeah, she is obviously operating on that fear factor yet again. So both of those cases have a fear factor involved. Look, I'm all about choices, and you know, there's a lot of, like, her state and the previous one in the same state. You know, they do have the choices, and I'm a big women's rights advocate for being able to choose whether you have a child or not, right? And this obviously comes back to education, in my view, because these girls are young girls with absolutely fear running their brain, and they don't know what to do. They obviously found themselves in a situation where they don't know how to deal with it. She obviously didn't want to go to her mother, and a mother, like this other mother, this Brooke Schuyler Robinson, her mother didn't even detect that she was pregnant either, and she's sat there and, like, she's very believable, the mother, on that one. But when it comes down to it, there has to be, you know, there has to be an increased awareness in education. I mean, maybe that's something to cover, Bethea, as another subject for another day, is bringing the awareness out of, you know, if you don't know where to go, you could cover where a person can go to get assistance. There has to be places out there that will provide it, and there has to be more education for girls to know where to go, because there's a lot of stuff that kids don't know where to start looking. And I know when I was, you know, in that age, if I wanted to do something, I didn't know where to start looking to be able to go and do something, even if it was just a simple project, you know, or doing something as a career. You don't know where to start to look for it, and you really look towards your parents' guidance on those sorts of things. But these girls, you know, Alexi, in this case, she's very fearful of her mother. So if there was a place where she could have gone to get assistance in what to do or how to go about something, or what choices she could do in advance. Again, I say this whole thing where this poor little thing is just immediately unalive could probably have been avoided.
My belief is, I believe, if anything, if she's scared of anything, she's scared of public opinion. I mean, she's done all this to keep up appearances, in my opinion.
Well, there is an appearance side of it, but if you listen to her voice and the inflections in her voice and the tones in her voice, and she of her mother, she's quite fearful of her mother, 100%. And looking at other subsequent videos where the mother full on takes control over the whole situation. You know, tell me before you tell what you need to tell me before I'll let you speak to her, and stuff like that. You know, if she's 19, she's regarded an adult. You know, the mother really doesn't have to to stand on in that respect. You know, law enforcement can only take something from her. That's what they're going to do. And in that sense, you know, the mother becomes a very controlling factor. And you can't, you know, she probably thought she's brought a child up properly, but in that sense, if she's got a child that can't come to her about that sort of stuff, being another woman, the closest woman you'll ever know is your mum.
Mm-hmm.
And once you lose your mother passes on, you're on your own. You gotta get your own little wings out and start flying and flapping around like, you know, like the bird is, you know, gone from the nest, no matter what age you are. So
you're right about that. I know that feeling.
You can't go to your own mother, the one person in the world who most likely won't betray you. She could have probably gone to her early on, and they could have made the correct choices without the detriment.
You're right about that.
Got this key factor relationship. Yeah, so the fear factor relationship here is a big. It sticks out like a sore toe. It really does. It's so obvious. You know, whatever the mother has said to the kid, girl, adult, rather than kid. I shouldn't say kid. She's 19. Whatever the mother has said to her prior to all this happening has made her fearful of going to her.
Let me set this next one up, because we are at the end of our hit list. I want you to take a look at this photo. And as you're looking at this photo, I'm going to read this article, because this is what set this whole thing off for today. Texas police released video footage of a woman they believe gave birth in a Houston gas station bathroom, then left the newborn there to die and ran off earlier this year. The incident dates back to early morning hours of April 2nd at a Shell station on South Post Oak Road. A customer found the infant in the bathroom at about 4:30 a.m. and called paramedics. The baby girl had died by the time the Houston Fire Department paramedics got to the scene. Police have yet to find the mother and release the video of the woman they believe to be the suspect entering the gas station before leaving in a white Cadillac. If I can do this, I'm gonna bring up the video if possible. If I can. There's no there's no audio for it, but this is the that was the footage they had showing the woman that was that they suspect this young lady right here. They suspect her of leaving the baby to die in a gas station bathroom. The article continues that the edited footage shows the suspect, whom police only identified as a Hispanic woman, getting out of the car at one of the gas pumps before heading inside. Her face can clearly be seen upon zooming in as she enters a convenience store before it cuts to her getting back into the Cadillac and driving away. The video does not show her entering or exiting the gas station bathroom, but police have said she is a person of interest, believed to be the infant's mother. However, they have clarified that they're still not entirely sure outside of the woman on camera's status as a suspect. We really don't know what the circumstances are or who she is in relation to the infant. Police say that the woman was in that restroom for about 15 minutes before leaving, with the baby found an hour later. They noted that this occurred early on a Sunday morning, which meant there were few people around to either look into the situation or even to use the restroom. No one else went inside that bathroom, and the newborn was not there when she walked in before, said Houston Detective Caleb Browning. I mean, we get this too much, and we get this too much, and this time we know that this young lady is not a teenager. She seems to be older than that.
Yeah, she does. And one thing when I look at her image, and it's just a vibe, is that she doesn't look like a citizen.
I'm not gonna make any assumptions about her citizenship. All I know is if this is the woman who did this, she's gonna go through the same thing in Texas, what Alexi Trebizio is about to go through in New Mexico, and what Alexis Avila is already going through in New Mexico. And I'm sorry, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah,
Avila,
well, she's
and now this. What is going on here with these mothers just literally throwing away the children after having it? I don't get it.
Yeah, that one's a bit of a mystery. They obviously, I don't understand why that camera footage, law enforcement would clearly be able to get the plate off that car.
Yeah.
And they should be able to pick up the plate on that car quite easily in travel. But this one is obviously, until law enforcement came out, just the other day, it's been going on since April. So, why has it taken law enforcement this long to come out?
You're right about that. You are so right. Why? I don't know.
That's the million-dollar question, really. Why has it taken law enforcement this long to come out to share this vision?
Well, hopefully we'll get some answers, and when we do, you'll hear it here. Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. For now, I'm gonna say thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for jumping in the chat. Thanks for jumping on the panel. Sav, you, as always, you're amazing.
Thank you. But have a look at Brooke Schuyler Robertson's case, because that's very interesting. The only thing that she was convicted of was tampering with the
with evidence.
With the evidence, yeah.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Because and also that other one, the other one that I mentioned, where the parents starved their newborn. Now that is more heinous than what these other ones are doing in that sense, because the guy in the video, the husband, his mouth literally drops right open at the fact that they were convicted with murder of a 10-month-old. The mother is clearly distraught and everything, but that the child was given lack of care due to religious beliefs. Now, I don't care what religion you're from. If you have a child and it's not doing well in one way or another, you have a duty of care to seek professional medical assistance.
Absolutely.
And that is worldwide, I say that, not just one country here or one country there. You have a duty of care to seek professional medical assistance.
Mm-hmm. That's all I need to hear on that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for joining me, and catch this edition on the replay. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and first off, as I'm saying goodbye, if you have a good mother, be sure to hug her, let her know you love her, and you appreciate her. And as always, I want to say to everyone, I love you. Take that, spread it around, be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, and hopefully I'll see you again next time. Sav, again, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's fun in that sense to be able to try and look at the other side of the coin in these things a little bit more, as to why these things might be occurring, so that maybe there's something that can be done to bring further awareness out there for people to know that they do have some sort of choice,
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what comes out of it, then all of the unalivings of these little ones have helped.
Let's hope so. All right, everybody. Let's do this again come next time. Until then, Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw, signing out for Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Until next time, you all know what to do. Bite this. Hey guys, the Last Outlaw here. Thank you all so much for watching this video and subscribing to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I appreciate the support of this little engine powered by you. Did you enjoy this video? Do you want to give your feedback on it? Here's what you do. Like this video to get more eyes on it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to click the notification bell and set it to all to be notified of future videos. Share this video to your social media. I respond to your comments, good or bad, so drop your thoughts here. Be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media. At Bethea'S Byte True Crime on Facebook. At EKB316 on Twitter. At Bethea'S Byte Reloaded on YouTube. That's with and without the punctuation marks. At EB The Last Outlaw on Instagram. At King of Hearts 316 2021 on TikTok. You can email me at kingofhearts316_09@outlook.com. This is your home for news, opinions, debates, your voice, and justice served. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.